So welcome to another edition of the Kilted Homesteader. Today's project is going to be putting a putting a water temperature sensor on my Ford tractor, my Ford 8N. It's a 1952 model, so it's the last year that they made the Ford 8N. And this tractor is a working tractor. It's not a showpiece. I thought about making it a showpiece, but I tend to use it more for work, so I didn't want to make it too nice where I was afraid of bumping it into something or, getting it banged into. Not that I try to bang into my tractor, but you know how things happen when you're working. But so since it's a working tractor, I like to have a water temperature sensor on it just so I know how things are going, especially if you're having a long day in the field, maybe running a brush hog or something like that. That's when the engines really tend to get up to good hot operating temperature, and it's good to be able to keep an eye on things. The original Ford 8Ns, the guys will tell you, did not need, or I guess they didn't think it needed a temperature sensor, or they would have put one on it. And of course, Henry Ford, he was a very efficient individual. If something didn't need to be on something, he didn't do it, because anywhere you can save money and expense, it allows you to sell the tractor that much less to the consumer, and also probably more profitable for the company. A lot of people, like I said, will say that the Ford 8N tractors have more than enough radiator for any type of work that would typically be done. And so they really didn't have a need for a temperature sensor. They said as long as people say, as long as you keep the fan belts nice and snug, you have good coolant in it, it's filled to the proper level, not overfilled, not underfilled, and you keep the chaff out of the louvers in the radiator, that you really will never have to worry about it overheating. And I'm sure that's the case, because this seems to be a very efficient tractor when it comes to that. However, like I said, doing brush work, it's a good idea, I think, to have an idea of what's going on, so we can make sure that things are running in the right ranges. So this project I didn't film as I went along, because I was a little nervous and worried about breaking something, especially as a 70-year-old machine. Didn't want to mess it up. So I'm doing it in stages, because I don't want anybody to be embarrassed to see me break something and have to have that on YouTube. I don't want to be that guy. So we will show you the process and what we've been doing, and show you the steps of what we've been doing so far to put this temperature sending unit on this tractor. So the kit from Steiner's, this is, I guess, their part number that they would call it. Of course, it says made in Taiwan, which I'm surprised it wasn't made in China, but it was made in Taiwan. It's ABC239. That's also what's shown on the invoice. So I'm sure if you go to their website, Google it, that is what will come up. And with it comes the fittings that you need to put it in the block, and also the gauge itself. And the thing to remember about these gauges is the gauge and that cable that comes with it, do not cut that. From what I understand, that's filled with a fluid that helps send the signal to the gauge, basically off expansion of the fluid, to say what the temperature of it is. So if you cut it, that fluid drains out, you will not any longer have any of a temperature sensor, but just have a gauge sitting in your dash. The other thing is, too, they say not to kink the extra cable that comes with it. I'm going to try to tuck it up and wrap it up real nice up underneath the hood so nobody can see it. I always try to keep things as neat and orderly as I possibly can. But you do not want to kink it, because then it can affect the reading of the gauge also. So I just wanted to share this with you. So like I mentioned before, this is a 1952 Ford 8N. So it's the newer of the 8N series. And on these, they call a boss on the block here that was made for a temperature sending unit to be put in. This was also an industrial engine. It wasn't just used on tractors. They used it to power other things. And I guess there's some applications, especially in a hotter environment, where a temperature sensor would be a good idea to have. So the older Ford 8Ns didn't have this here, so they really can't put a temperature sending unit on the front of into the side of the head. I keep saying block, but it's actually the head. There are T connections that can be put in here that allow the temperature sending unit to go into the side of it's like a metal type of a pipe that goes in between the hose, and you can tap into that metal T fitting to utilize it. I could have gone that route. I was actually debating whether to do it or not, because I'm really nervous and punching through on the side of a head, even though it's designed to do it. Once in a while, I tend to be accident prone because I get ahead of myself, or and I try not to do that. So I'm really trying to do this by the numbers and taking my time. Also, that T-fitting, the cheapest I could find, it was like $60, which I thought was a lot to spend on it. So I figured I'd take the gamble. I watched a YouTube video of an individual who'd done this on the side of his head. And so far, the project is working really well. I had put a mark. He said, the individual I watched said you mark down 1/4 of an inch from the top of the boss. That's that little mark there. And then you put a penny there centered in that area. And then in the center of the penny, you drill a hole, and that's where you put your mark. Here's the penny that I used. Sorry to the federal government for damaging this currency, but I figured, you know, it's a penny. So so what I did was I found the center of the penny, drilled the penny, and then what I did is put it over the hole, and then I took a center punch I had and made a mark on the block. Now, of course, people will say, well, what about getting metal shavings inside there? So there's a couple things that I did. One, as I drilled, I had a little grease on my bits. So it grabbed little metal filings, also go a little bit, in a little bit, come out, clean the filings off, go grease on it, go back in again. Then, once I had the hole punched out, we're only at 1/2 inch right now. I still have to go up to, I think it's 23, 30 seconds for the tap to work. I have to, so I still have one more drill to do on this yet. So then, but what I did when I got to the 1/2 inch, that's what this hole is right now, is a 1/2 inch hole. And you can see there's a lot of meat inside there for things to grab onto for the fitting. Then what I did was I took a real small magnet and I went in there and pulled, and went in and grabbed, the little magnet would grab filings and bring them out. And it worked really well. I kept going in and out, wipe it off, put it back in. And I'm sure I've got all the filings here. I had really good access in here. And I'll do that again once I put the final big hole in. But again, I put grease on the bit, and that kind of keeps the filings from going inside the head. Now, I had one little boo-boo. I said I tend to be accident prone once in a while. And my first pilot hole was an 1/8 inch drill bit. And I didn't want to go 16th because I was afraid it would snap it off, because anybody that's done drilling knows a 16 inch drill bit tends to be very gentle or delicate, and they break easy. Well, I pushed my 1/8 inch bit in for the first push. It went through, I pulled it out, and things looked good, cleaned the filings up. I figured I just want to go in one more time just to kind of make sure it's a nice smooth hole. And when I went in, and as I was going in, it snapped off the bit, flush with the hole. And I'm thinking, there's no way I could get it out. I tried to see, there was nothing even to grab onto. So I thought, well, maybe I'll get lucky and keep going up on my sizes on my bit, and maybe it'll be just sitting inside the head there. And doggone if I didn't get lucky. Punched through, and when I was putting that magnet in there, at one time it grabbed that drill bit. So that little piece of an 1/8 inch drill bit. And you want to talk about me praising the Lord and jumping up and down. I was pretty excited because I did not want to have to worry about that being in the system, because obviously it would have caused damage. So I would have had done something, but the bit did come out and I was able to do it. So, this is, like I said, a very hairy operation. Would have been easier to put the T connection in there on the upper hose, but so far things are progressing very well, and things are going along. So I just wanted to share this video to show it can be done. I'm not a master mechanic. I know just enough to get me in trouble, is what I often tell people. But this is a really nice machine, and I really want to take good care of it, and that's the reason why we wanted to go for this. So this system, this cold temperature system, is from a company called Steiner's. They had this gauge kit for the 8N, and there was several different ones out there, different types of gauges. I like their gauge the best, mainly because I think the font of the numbers and stuff really kind of seemed to correspond the best with the other gauges on the Ford 8N. So it kind of looked like it might have been original, even though it isn't. Again, this isn't a showpiece, which is, so aesthetics, I guess. I like the way it looked. So, and it seemed like a real nice complete kit. And so price was very reasonable. So I bought it, had it shipped. And so prior to this gauge being put in, I had a cigarette lighter put right in here. And then, so I took the cigarette lighter and relocated a different area. I've actually fabricated a bracket for it. It's actually underneath the hood by the toolbox. And I had to drill this hole out, and of course I'm using a hole saw. And so what I did was I put a piece of 2x4 behind and put a clamp on it to clamp it down. So that way the pilot hole for the hole saw had a place to go into to keep things steady. And then I drilled out to 2-inch, and the gauge would not go in. It was really super close. So the gauge would not, but it, you know, I had the 2-inch hole, but I guess it's a little over 2-inch, the back part of the gauge. So what I took is a Dremel tool with a bit and just kind of slowly went around at a steady motion around a couple of times. The Dremel tool with a diamond, you know, like a grinding tip on it. Then I tried it and it actually popped right in. It was like perfect. So that went in really well. So that's where we're at now. We have that done. I still got to punch my last hole and put the fitting in. Here, actually, let me show you. This is where I put the cigarette lighter. And I only have it, so if you have a cell phone or something you want to charge up, I put it right in here. I fabricated a bracket to attach it to the toolbox. And it's right underneath the hood here. So now I can, you know, if you have a cell phone, you're out in the field long or you're doing some work, I wired it in through the ignition system or through the key. So it only works when it's plugged in. But I made this little bracket up for it. And you can charge your phone in here. And nice thing, you can always just set your phone right in the toolbox right there while it's charging. So it was a fun little project, and it's all part of prepping for the temperature gauge because I wanted to be able to put it where the cigarette lighter was for visibility. So now we're gonna go on to the next step, but I just wanted to share what I had done so far with this. So a second ago, I told you about that 1/8" bit that broke off inside, and that's it right there. So that it actually literally broke in half, and it was flush with the hole, so I couldn't even get you know, a piece of vice grips or pliers to grab onto it. And just by me going up size and drilling up, I had a feeling it would be sitting right inside, and thank the good Lord it was, and the magnet was able to just, you know, a couple times I went in there and grabbing some little bit of filings that were in there, and it came out with it. And like I said, I kept going in with the magnet until I did not get any filings to come out. And then of course, when I go up the next size, I'll keep running it in there for filings and make sure we got everything out before we go putting coolant in it and everything. So I just wanted to share that with you. Like I said, I always seem to have these little things that come up, but the good Lord was with me on that one, that's for sure. So another thing I wanted to show you, and that's why I started recording again here. This is the fitting. It's a pipe fitting. It's a 1/2" pipe fitting. That doesn't mean this is a 1/2" size. It's almost like a 3/4 size if you measured it. A penny, actually, if you put a penny over it, it perfectly covers it. And a penny is 0.75, so basically 3/4 inch. So the hole will be like a 3/4 inch hole, but I guess they call it 1/2" because the center there is that 1/2" right down there of flow, I guess you say, for a pipe fitting. I don't know enough, like I said, I know just enough to get me in trouble. But this is the one that's gonna go in there. That final tap is gonna, you know, the final drill, and then the tap, we're gonna tap it right in there, and it's gonna go like that. And of course, there's another fitting that turns into that will go into the sending unit will turn into that once this is in the block. So, so yeah, it's a 1/2" regular pipe tap is what we're going to be using. I can't remember the thread count, but it's 1/2", even though it's not a 1/2" diameter down here. I guess, like I said, for plumbing purposes, the inside of what is 1/2". So the other individual, I watched his video, I don't know if he was misspeaking or something, but he was saying it was he said a different size. And I'm not being critical of him. He may have just been using a different type set than I am, but that's where we're at with this kit from Steiner's. That's the size dimensions that we have with that. Okay, so I was able to drill the hole out to 23/32, and then I was able to then tap it with the 1/2" pipe tap. Now, I can tell you that the other individual I watched his video, he was using, I guess, a 1/4" pipe was what his had. This was 1/2", and his obviously did not take up near as much real estate on the boss. This seems to taken up every little bit of the boss. I tell you what, I'm not crazy about the size of that, but it did drill okay, it did tap okay, and I think it will hold together ultimately. There's a lot of meat in there. I think I measured it's probably maybe 1/2" to a little over a 1/2" as far as depth in there. So there's plenty of room for for the fitting to tighten up in there. And there's a lot of meat around it too. So I think this will be okay. I think I feel a little bit more comfortable with the smaller version that the other guy had. But so far, this looks like it's gonna work out okay. Obviously, with the size hole it is, I was able to easily get a magnet in there to pull the filings out, and I just kept putting it in there, digging it around until I did not come back out with any filings at all in the magnet. I even put my finger in there. The only thing I feel is little puddles of antifreeze, and they don't feel gritty or grimy or anything like that. I think I was able to get all of the shavings out. So far, so good. We're going to progress to the next step, which is putting a little thread sealer on the fitting. And I did test fit the fitting in there. In fact, let me show you that. So it's able to turn in really nice and easy. Doesn't feel too sloppy. The threads chase real easy. You just take your time. It's the biggest thing I can say. I'm sure anybody that's done work on vehicles could tell you. Take your time going in, thread it back out, because you don't want to chew up your face and not have a place for threads to grip. But you can see that thread's in there pretty nice, and it fits in there pretty flush and good. There's plenty of depth in there for the probe. Like I said, I can stick my one finger in there and go in pretty deep before I feel like contacting the other end of the water jacket. So I'll tell you what, the flathead engines, they really make a nice, a really nice, robust engine in my opinion. I know there's got little quirks about it, but overall I think they're really good. So you can see I had that whole thing threaded in there pretty well and without any complications. Here, I'll put it in again just to show you. Just want to make sure I start it square. The other thing I think was interesting too, a lot of guys say these come with brass. They did not. This one came, it looks like a zinced steel or something like that. So it goes in there good. I just don't want to cross thread. I'm trying to take my time doing it. There she goes. There she goes, right in real nice. So you can see I'm threading it all the way in, real easy, not a problem. Doesn't feel too sloppy. It's going in nice and snug. And I kind of wish it would have been a brass fitting. I did go to a local Napa, and they did not have anything that was the same that was brass. So I would have put brass in there just because I'd rather the brass give way than a steel breaking the casting. So we'll be real careful putting it in there. I got some advice from the Only Ford 8N Tractor group on Facebook. They're very helpful on there. All they talk is 8N tractors. They don't really want to talk 2Ns or 9Ns. They're real polite about it, but they want to talk 8Ns. So you can see that's going to work out really well. So we'll put a little, clean it up again, put a little thread sealer in there, and then go ahead and torque it down there, but again, not too tight. Okay, we got it, the thread sealer on there, and I got it in there snug. I didn't go crazy with it. It's a 7/8 head on this fitting, and I chose to go with a 3/8 ratchet just so I didn't go a little too nuts with it. Because I know me, I always go that last little bit and then all of a sudden, oops, I shouldn't have done that. So I used a 3/8 ratchet so I didn't have torque to my advantage. In fact, I even choked up a little bit on the ratchet, so we wouldn't have any problems there. Now the thread sealer I used is one by Permatex. It's a thread sealant made for this type of application. Some of the guys on the forum, the Facebook forum said use 567 Loctite. I stopped at the auto parts store. They didn't have anything in it. Any of that. This is what I saw. It was a high temp thread sealant for hydraulic or coolant applications. So I went with that. It says to give it 4 hours to cure. So I'm gonna, I got some other things I'm gonna go do, and then I'll come back to it after it dries in a little bit. And I'm gonna put that other fitting on real quick, the second fitting with actually is the probe on it. And then I'll go away for a little bit, give it some time to set up. Then we'll put our antifreeze in it, hook our plug wires back up because I was doing some other work as I was doing this. And then we'll give it a test and we'll see how it goes, fingers crossed. But so far, so good with this project. Okay, so I put the sending unit actually in that fitting. This fitting here, I probably didn't have to because it looked like it has almost like a compression fitting in there. But I did put some thread sealer also in this fitting and chased it in, use the wrench to go in. I try not to go over too tight with it. Obviously, there's no way to put a socket on here because of the cable coming out that's permanently affixed. So you could also use a line wrench. I just used a regular 5/8 wrench, I think it was. and tightened that in there. Like I said, I put a little thread sealer on it. So now I'm gonna let it sit for a bit. I got some other things I gotta do. And also I did route my cables up top here along the top with my wiring. I kind of zip tied it together, but not too tight. But we put that together and then ran it all the way up. And then of course, you know, it's coming up around the top, and then I left room to get my battery out later if I need to, and then it's attached right up into there now. So we'll let it sit up, the sealant sit up, and then we will go ahead and fill it up with antifreeze and then test it out. All right, this is the final product, the end result. It all turned out very well. I gave it time to cure, filled the radiator up with antifreeze. Didn't see any leaks, so we let it run for a good long while. Try to get up some temperature. Even took it around the block a few times, up some steep hills, down some hills. Everything, try to warm the engine up. And I checked it, kept checking it periodically, and there does not appear to be any leaks. So far so good. As far as operating temperature, I just turned it off about 5 minutes ago, and it's showing, I had to guess, probably 150, 160 degrees, somewhere in there. I let it get as warm as it possibly could. It's a cold winter day, not super cold, a little bit above freezing, but you know, it's a little difficult to get these tractors up to temperature in weather like this. But I did let it run for, I bet you, over an hour, in counting the driving and then letting it run, idling, and you know, different speeds and everything to try to get the antifreeze all settled in and everything. And I don't seem to see any leaks, so I will chalk this project up as a success. And I was really nervous about it, like I mentioned throughout the video, but things turned out really well, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, and we'll see how it holds up over time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I know it's quite a long video, but if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification button if you'd like to be notified of future videos. I don't do a ton of them, but I try to do them, you know, somewhat regular and varied topics, you know, around homesteading, workshop work, and things like of that nature. I try to be pretty diverse. So I don't know it all. I've learned a lot off of other people and other YouTubers, and I try not to pirate or take other people's ideas. I try to come up with my own. Like I mentioned, there was another individual that had done a project like this, except his connection was just a little bit different than mine. That's why I did this, and tried to answer a few of the questions that weren't answered on, I don't think were answered on his video. So I hope this really helps out. Thank you again for watching.